have these plug strips at everybody's desk, and their laptops are plugged into one outlet, monitors are plugged into another outlet, and lamps and so on and so forth. This is kind of a building level view of it. It shows the daily energy consumption of all of the, people's desks. So on this, this Monday, April 4th, 60 kilowatt hours were used. But people actually have the ability to log in from their phone at home, see if they left anything on, and actually turn it off, which it may seem ridiculous, but it's kind of the way that, there's the Internet of Things, everything's moving to be more highly metered and controllable. And it allows people to be more engaged with their own energy consumption, which we think is valuable. Not to mention, we're a research laboratory, and researchers can use these data to draw conclusions and things like that. This is just another dashboard, another way to view that same data of plug loads in that building. And we have tons of dashboards. I have to say we have probably too many energy management systems on our campus, and we have a big effort right now to consolidate all of that into one really powerful system. And that's kind of another part of my job, is to make data accessible not only just to operations folks, but to people that work in the buildings and people that are researchers. We had a great question about EV charging stations. So we have 36 charging stations at NREL, and you can see the load profile of each one of those. And it's kind of interesting to see people show up in the morning. So here's a time scale here. At 7 a.m., the first person kind of shows up, plugs in their car, and they charge and charge, and more people show up and plug in their cars. And then by about 9, it hits a peak. Then as cars become more and more charged, they're full, the cars disconnect automatically, and you basically get a load of zero after, and people leave work, and so you can see, at a micro scale, each EV charging station, and at a macro scale, how that affects, it creates a 100 kW load, which is not insignificant on our scale of our campus. Question?
If you're running low, like if it's cloudy or it snows or something, would this be the kind of system you might ratchet down a little bit, or?
It's funny you asked that. So part of our energy storage is not only just to discharge a battery, but we're also trying to curtail loads. So we're actually going to reduce the amperage available to these charging stations. People will still be able to get a charge, but it won't have as big of an effect on our campus. So in conclusion, I just wanted to have 2 takeaways today. When you're planning, remember that somebody is going to have to manage the energy consumption of your project someday. And I have to be honest, I know absolutely nothing about urban planning and regional planning and things like that. But somebody will have to manage the energy consumption of the buildings that are in what you planned out. And so it's really important to set up your system in a way that allows that. And there's so many federal mandated requirements to measure energy, to report on it. That's something to consider. Also, plan the infrastructure. This is a lesson learned from us for future renewables and energy storage. Our campus is small, and a lot of people already have dibs on where they're going to put build new buildings in 20 years from now, and so we can't put PV there anymore. And it's very expensive to do piecewise. To put a little PV on this roof and put a little PV on that roof makes the project very expensive. So having a piece of land set aside, okay, this is for renewables, is really valuable. Also having spare switches available to tie in grid-connected storage is also another valuable thing. So we don't have a surplus of transformers on our campus. We have a few spare ones where we could put our large battery, but beyond that, it's getting into building sites, and it really affects that. So this is kind of what I went through today. Campus energy. We collect the data, and we process it, and we spit it out to employees, researchers, and site operations, and we're trying to really consolidate our energy management system so that everybody can draw from the same quality set of data. And that's all I had to say today. Any questions? Yes?
Are there good national numbers on growth or decline or whatever of plug load energy use over the last 10, 20 years? It's dramatic gains in efficiency with products, but also a lot more products. Where does the line go?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So you would think that over time, plug loads are getting much more efficient, right? Computers, my laptop today probably uses a tenth of what a 1990s laptop used, right? Well, let me illustrate this point by talking about Energy Star and how they rate refrigerators. So 20 years ago, people used to buy the refrigerators that have a freezer on top and a freezer on bottom, or a refrigerator on bottom. They didn't have an ice maker. They weren't French doors with the fancy stainless steel contraption and everything like that. So actually, the new refrigerators, the most efficient refrigerator, by the way, is the freezer on top with a refrigerator on the bottom. And the one with the French doors and the pull-out freezer on the bottom is very inefficient, actually. So Energy Star plays a game where they make different categories for different types of refrigerators, and they do that for all types of plug loads. So maybe 10 years ago, people had a small TV in their house. Now everybody has a gigantic LED TV, and yeah, and a giant LED TV uses not so much energy, but it's not a market difference where it's night and day. This guy only uses 1 watt, where my CRT TV used 100 watts. This one uses about, I would say, probably 55 watts, and a CRT TV 20 years ago used, like 100. So it's like an ebb and flow. Some things get better and some things get worse. Yeah. Yes.
So you mentioned that the battery you all are looking into getting is basically a bunch of laptop batteries.
Yeah.
So if it's anything like my laptop battery gets really hot, is this battery also going to be super hot? Is it going to need to be cooled like a data center? What efficiency level is that going to be running at?
So actually a big concern with batteries is getting them too cold. So if any of you drive an electric car, you know that you have a lot of reduced range in the wintertime when your battery's cold. And the heat that the battery produces can be a concern. So they are all climate controlled. They have fire suppression built into these big storage containers I was telling you about. But you're right, thermally cycling the battery, so doing a really rapid discharge will heat up the battery, or charging it too fast will heat up the battery, reducing its life. And so battery manufacturers have warranties for those types of things. They say, okay, you could have my battery and I'll warranty it for 10 years, but you can only discharge it 5 times a week because they only rate it for like 10,000 cycles. Likewise, your laptop is probably only good for 10, 20,000 cycles. So,
can batteries be recycled and made into a new battery?
certain kinds, yes. And I don't know.
Do you see that as like a major, is that like one of our big hurdles right now? Like not just coming up with how to make enough batteries, but how to do it without creating a huge toxic mess?
It's a good question. So some of the older batteries, definitely, lead acid batteries are very toxic. So the new lithium iron phosphate batteries, they can be thrown away into just a junkyard. They don't have any big environmental impacts, but recyclability and end of life, the cradle to grave thing is a very important thing to consider. So.
Are you guys plugged in with the Gigafactory at all? Like, are you consulting on that, or is it?
No, we're not.
Okay.
Question?
Do you know of tools that are available to individuals who are interested in monitoring their own loads or usage, or how does my refrigerator perform next to, my 10-year-old refrigerator perform next to something I could buy new, and be able to do individual calculations of what would, how long would it take me to pay back that new refrigerator? What is the energy savings there?
There is such a thing. So if you go to Home Depot, there's a little plug-in device called a kilowatt, K-I-L-L-A-W-A-T-T, and you can use that to monitor your loads. You can also go to EPA's website, Energy Star, and they have some good info there as well. Well, thank you guys for your attention.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've been working on it for 5 years, and I think now I'm glad to hear that. That's news to me, actually. It's been held up for a long time in our own legal questions and everything, so you're citing it?
It's still,
It's just see what's out there.
Yeah, the new interconnection agreement is really limited.
All right, so my name is Sonrisa Lucero, and I'm in the Mayor's Office of Sustainability here in Denver. And I'm going to go through the slides part of my presentation really fast, maybe skip a bunch of stuff, because I think what your guys' interest is going to be very different. And I'm going to riff a little bit and kind of throw out some of the big things that we're doing across the city to try and achieve some of our big sustainability goals. And because I know nothing about planning, I'm going to ask you guys to just like pepper me with questions that are related to planning around these things that we're trying to do. And I'm also going to, though I have pulled out a few things with my like zero knowledge of planning that I thought might be relevant to you, so I'm also going to try and highlight a little bit of those things. So as I said, I'm in the Mayor's Office of Sustainability, and there's a mighty group of 3 of us in our office. We are tiny, but we are mighty. And the gentleman on the right is Jerry Tignano, our Chief Sustainability Officer. And the important thing that happened with Mayor Hancock's administration is it's the first time that sustainability was elevated to a cabinet level position. And so he's an appointee, he's at a cabinet level, which means that he can talk with all the executive directors of the different agencies within the city to be able to get work done, and he can talk to them as a peer, you know, not have to be a lowly staff person like me trying to beg for their attention. So our charge came from Executive Order 123. That's what created our office, and that's what has set out a lot of the sustainability parameters for the city as a whole. It has requirements in there for us to create a sustainability vision for our multi-year sustainability plan, metrics and reporting, and even 2020 goals, or sustainability goals are in there as well. There's 2 different categories of which the sustainability goals are organized. One is for government operations in and of itself, where our main goal is to create sustainability as a core business value. And so any decision making that's happening with the city should be looking at sustainability as a part of that. Whether or not that's actually happening, you know, is another question. That's about what our work is about. But a lot of that is supposed to be in there, including analysis for triple bottom line. So we should be doing life cycle cost analyses, not just on economics, but social and environmental impact as well. And a big part of the bottom part, or the bottom bullet there, is we are really trying to work across the different agencies and get them talking with each other and working together. I didn't know this before I came to the city, but there's a lot of different silos, and you know, each agency is like its own little fiefdom doing the work that they need to do. And to some extent, they do a good job of interacting with each other, and to some other extents, they do a horrible job of interacting with each other. And so we try and act as a bridge across those different agencies as well. The second part of our charge is to be working with the community as much as possible and to establishing sustainability as a public value. And so we try to be a catalyst as much as possible. Last year, I don't know if any of you heard about our sustainability summit that we did in the fall, or in the winter, I guess it was in December. I guess it's still the fall. But we had our sustainability summit, and a big part of that was really to rally people together from the community to start focusing on sustainability. Because as I'll show you in a minute, we have goals for both government operations as well as the community side. And by design, those community goals cannot be achieved by the government. So we do need the participation of the community in order to achieve them. And of course, we want to be a leader in different areas of sustainability. So we are taking an approach that's really trying to look at scale and urgency as much as possible. So I think in here there's a focus on the denominator. So a lot of times they'll say, oh, this effort saved, you know, or like is the same as planting 30,000 trees. You're like, great, how many trees do we need to plant? And nobody ever quite says that. Or we took 5 million cars off the road. And you're like, great, how many cars do we need to take off the road to make an impact? So we're really trying to look at the denominator and to make sure that we're playing at scale and with urgency. The other thing that we're trying to do is make sure we're looking at behavior, not just trying to solve everything with technology. And that we're also trying to really be open to different viewpoints and all this kind of thing. We know that we have to talk the language of the people we're working with. So the last thing I'll maybe kind of point out here is that we try not to define sustainability itself, but maybe like what it looks like when you're doing it. So we say it's the way we do business to ensure basic resources on which our economy and quality of life depend are available, affordable to everyone now and tomorrow. So I read that because there's some key points in here. So it's like the way we do business, it's based on basic resources, and we want to make sure that our quality of life is being upheld and that all the good stuff is available and affordable to everyone, but not just today, but also in the future. And that's the part that usually gets missed, right? So, especially in the city, we tend to look at the next budget cycle or the next quarter, and this is about looking, 5, 10 years in the future, and even future generations. And so that's what our office is trying to do. We're really trying to kind of push people beyond that typical thinking. So we have a pretty aggressive and broad look at sustainability. We've done it based on resource areas. So we've identified 12 resource areas we think our quality of life depend upon, and we've created 2 sets of goals for each of those areas. So our goals are over there on the right. And we've also kind of created a way in which we approach these goals. So we've clustered complementary goals together. So air quality, climate, energy, for example, you can't really work on one without working on the other. We've delegated responsibility for achieving that out to a team captain or a coordinating agency. So in this case, it's like Department of Environmental Health or General Services for each of those goals. And then there's other agencies that are out in the world that impact those goals. And so you can see, for example, there's actually more than just that, but that groups that do that. So the rest I'm going to throw out here, or the rest that's in here, is like how we start working together. And the reason why it's kind of important, but I'm not going to go into like how these things happen, is because it means that we get to start working with all the different agencies, including groups like Community Planning and Development that's doing blueprint revision for this year, and going to be, and usually what follows a blueprint revision is like the zoning code, right? And the other things that we would do with CPD or Community Planning Development is like we worked with them heavily on the 2015 code that we just adopted as a city. So now we're up to 2015 building codes, I-codes, including the International Energy Conservation Code, which is going to save 20 to 25% of energy in our residential and commercial buildings. We also included in that a requirement for electric vehicle charging station pre-wiring in all new single-family residential, as well as in duplexes. The effort to have that extended to commercial or to multifamily failed, but that's something we could probably get to at some point. We're also doing and considering now, can we create incentives or do some other kind of way to encourage people to go beyond code? And so we're beginning to look at incentives for those types of things. There's a policy that already exists within city building code that allows the code official to offer permit fee reductions for buildings that have energy or water conservation measures. We're actually trying to make that more specific because right now it's very general. So that's an effort that we're trying to make. We've been working a lot with the Colorado Energy Office to enable PACE, which is a financing mechanism for energy efficiency and renewable energy. Unfortunately, their original legislation that they had a lot of error, a lot of things that were unworkable for the city, and so they put a legislative fix through at the state to try and correct that, and it got through the Senate, which is like huge. And so now we're just waiting for it to get to the House, which we imagine that it will. And as soon as that fix has gone through, then the city will have to consider whether or not we're going to opt into the program. There's still one big hurdle in the program that we have to figure out how to get over, but if we can get over that, I think we'll have a PACE program in Denver. We're working to allow gray water, so the new plumbing code allows it, but the CDPHE regulations require that we have to pass regulations through our city council in order to get there, so we're working on passing that right now. We just had our first committee meeting with city council on Tuesday, so city council today. This year is a huge planning year, this year and next year for the city. There are 4 major plans that are happening that are going to impact us citywide. So blueprint is being revisited. Game plan, which is the kind of like the blueprint for parks, is happening. We have Denver Moves, which has 2 plans under it going on right now. So both transit and pedestrian plan are happening. So big thing for that. And then of course zoning usually follows those things. Now, I kind of looked at some of the questions you all sent ahead, and also just kind of want to give you a big broad picture of some of the things that we're looking at to try and achieve our climate, energy, and air quality goals. So our air quality goal for the city is to be in compliance with all of the national ambient air quality standards. And as I said earlier, we're not compliant with those. Our climate goal is to get back down to 1990 levels as a city, which, so I can remember, it's, I think we're at 13.2 or 3, and I think we need to get down to 11.8, so 1.5 million metric tons, I think is the right unit that we're trying to subtract. And then our energy goal is quite aggressive. It's trying to remain flat with 2012 and then reduce our fossil fuel consumption by 50%. So they're quite aggressive goals. And so ways that we're approaching these things, number one is with buildings, because that is about 50% or more of our energy use as a city. And so we're doing it in two ways. One is with the new building side, as you all saw. We upgraded our code. We're starting to look at stretch code. The planning and zoning efforts are things on the horizon. And then for existing buildings right now, which is 80% of the building stock, typically, as you can look at things, we have Energize Denver, which is a big effort for us as a city to how we can encourage and work with our existing buildings to get to some type of improvement on their energy efficiency. So right now we're actually out for public comment, so you can go onto the Energize Denver website, see the policies that are being proposed by the task force, and see, and it has an opportunity to actually comment on them. And there's a public meeting coming up on April 25th for anyone who's interested in participating in that. But it has everything in there from benchmarking and transparency to retro commissioning and energy audits within it, and it has different kind of ways to also get exempt, like if you have Energy Star certification, BEV certification. There was even a proposal for lead dynamic plaque. So those things are happening. Other thing, of course, code still affects existing buildings whenever they're retrofitting. And then there's also quite a bit of talk right now about DC and using direct current power within your buildings. So either in a retrofit application, so the Alliance Center over right here on Winku and 15th, they're getting ready to do a DC retrofit of their building, and they're kind of doing it in phases. And they're going to have battery backup storage over there as well. Or and then of course there's the opportunity for new construction as well. And we haven't heard too many buildings on the new construction side doing that yet, but there's an opportunity for it. We're also looking at kind of on a net zero districts. So there's 4 main areas that are kind of campus master plans that are trying to work on net zero districts right now. So one is over at 61st and Pena, so the new Panasonic headquarters. Panasonic has just brought their sustainability division here to the city, and their headquarters, they're working on being net zero, along with the residential area next to it. I mean, I don't know if net zero is an official goal for them, but they really want to be like a smart neighborhood. But they have just worked with Excel to create a battery backup, microgrid and battery storage pilot that's going to happen at the Panasonic site as well as at in Stapleton. They're doing it as well. And then Sun Valley, which is right over here by the stadium, Denver Housing Authority is probably going to rebuild their affordable housing efforts over there and model it quite a bit after the Mariposa build project that they have over off of Osage. And so they are actually looking for net zero goals and eco-district certification. The National Western Center, if you hadn't heard of it, is looking for net zero energy, waste, and water. And so that's a big part of, that was a huge planning effort. And right now we're working to make sure that the goals of the planning effort are getting into the RFP for the planners and designers for the project. And then Denver Water is working on One Water over on their campus, and they're going to try and do net zero energy, as well as, the quickest way for me to say is net zero water, but they are like, that's a horrible term, it's called One Water. And so they're going to be looking at a living machine and those types of things. And it's important to know that all of these campuses that are going after net zero are all looking at district energy. And in many cases, they're having to take this leap forward to actually break through PUC or Public Utilities Commission regulations. So in many ways, Excel is actually hamstrung on how they're trying to do some of these innovative systems that we would like to have for achieving energy goals. And so Panasonic took the, they God bless them, went for it, and they got the PUC pilot recognition for their project delivered on 61st opinion. And Denver Water is doing a similar effort. Instead, in this case, with it being with the PUC, it's going to be with the CDPHE, so Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, to get the appropriate regulations that they need to be able to do the on-site black water treatment that they want to do, as well as hopefully this year, we will get to be able to use purple pipe, so the recycled water for toilet flushing. So those types of things are all in the works, and you need somebody who's willing to do the work for the regulations, because Lowry, for example, when they got redeveloped, they weren't able to hit their net zero energy goals, and a big part of it was that they couldn't go beyond the 120% production limits that you're limited with Excel, and so they didn't have the time, energy, money to be able to go and get PUC dockets changed and new either pilot or different kind of structure from the PUC. So Panasonic was able to do that, at least in the battery storage backup. So there's a lot of efforts that have to be done sometimes on a statewide regulatory effort that require a lot of time and energy. And then a couple of other things to highlight as well. We're doing a lot around mobility right now, or at least we're hoping to. So congestion can be a huge concern for any city. And there's one, we won an effort, well, we got second place to a city, I won't say who, because rivalry is alive and well. But with Rocky Mountain Institute, to be able to work on transforming mobility from a commodity into more of a service. And so it's the whole idea of what you can do with smart cities, smart transportation systems, and if you're able to take advantage of this data that you, and the information of things kind of stuff, right? So you can call a Lyft, you can now do carpooling with Lyft as well, and you can share rides, and pretty soon if we can add autonomous vehicles into that type of thing, then people may cease to even drive their own cars, right? And what impact will that have on our road infrastructure and all that kind of thing, and what can that do for equality of you don't have to be able-bodied or be able to drive, even to be able to get transported somewhere, or maybe a food desert will cease to exist because now the food can just be delivered to you. Anyway, there's all kinds of things that we're trying to do in that area, and Rocky Mountain Institute effort that we have is the first part of that, and right now we're also a finalist for the Smart Cities $60 million grant coming from DOE and partner organizations. And so we're competing really hard right now, and that application is due in June, to be able to hopefully receive this $60 million lump of cash from the feds and partners to be able to try and jumpstart this smart city, smart mobility type of effort here locally. We're also working quite a bit with Excel and on converting streetlights to LEDs, and going even beyond just that, but creating each of these streetlights could have the opportunity to be like a cell phone, and they could be connected back through the internet to some kind of centralized computer or to the systems that even control signal lights or whatever. And you can put different apps onto any particular street light, and it can do things like sense where there's an open parking spot, and then people don't have to be running around the whole city looking for an open meter. You can direct them right to it. Or it can sense temperature, pavement temperatures, so you know when's the right time to employ what kind of salt, and to prevent ice. One thing that we were kind of talking about today is, can they sense road conditions, so that one of the big problems for autonomous cars, especially in snow and ice, is that it can't detect when snow and ice is available, right? So if we could get the streetlights that give road conditions back to the autonomous vehicles, they could actually know where there's black ice, where there's snow pileups or whatever, you know? So we're really trying to future-proof the city as much as possible in all of these types of things. At the same time as we want to make sure that we recognize we have a real opportunity to protect the night sky, and to maybe try and reduce light pollution as much as possible. So we're trying to bring all those things in together at the same time as we save energy. Any other big things in here I want to bring up? Of course, and then so renewable energy, as much as possible, we're really trying to expand renewable energy. Excel's been doing great with their RPS. This year is the last year for the full investment tax credit for wind. And so that is a big motivator behind wind investment this year. After this year, it starts degrading and going down. Solar has a 1-year delay, and then it's going to start going down for, it's not called investment tax credit, it's called because of how they get it, the rebate, or the tax incentive. And so this year's a big year for wind, and if we can't get projects in this year, they start to be less and less economically viable. But with distributed solar, again, you get back into this net metering issue, you also get back into the grid. For example, I've been told that we can't put more solar on some convention center right now because I'm not gonna get the right words, so correct me after I butcher it, but the local grid area, the transformer can't take any more solar onto the grid because it's full downtown, so we couldn't put any more solar in on the convention center. So the load we have on there is just the same amount of what they know that we'll have at any given time, and so that's the parking garage load. So that's an area of opportunity for us in a lot of ways. And as we start to think forward, we have a lot of growth happening, right? And so that creates a huge affordability issue for us because we're having so much demand for housing. And so that, because Denver is landlocked, we're not expanding anymore. There's even laws that don't let Denver expand or annex anymore. So that means the only way that we can grow as a city is if we increase our own density. And then if you have a mobility problem and an affordability problem as well, then you tend to direct your density towards TOD or towards transit places. And so that is one of our major strategies right now, is directing transit towards, directing density towards transit locations. And you'll see that with the fast tracks build out and where we're trying to locate density at this point. But that does create a question, what some of y'all brought up, which was like, how can the local grid support those different areas and we're pushing density into certain spots. For Excel, a lot of it is like, we've seen this with the marijuana growth as different warehouses came in. We were getting tons of, it was actually like blowing transformers and different things like that for Excel, and so they actually had to go out and upsize them. To be honest, I think grid issues aren't as far as capacity. I am less worried about Excel can handle those things. They actually make their more money off of infrastructure than they do selling you electricity, so that's not really so much the problem. The problem really is how do we manage the interchange of the electrons from production to demand, and how can we make that, make the congestion of the grid, how can we manage congestion on the grid of both supply and demand at the same time? And so, and that's what smart grids are really able to do, is to be able to kind of have those traffic cops up there and reroute different types of good soldiers from electrons as we're going through. So, and that's a huge area of opportunity for us because there's just nothing there yet. And with that, I threw a lot out, so I'll yield for questions. If you have any specific for me or yes.
Has there been any conversation about possibly having marijuana growers have to have a certain amount of renewable energy, like to be able to provide their own?
Yeah, so we haven't decided to go that way yet. Boulder has gone that way, and they're doing that. For us, right now, so marijuana is roughly 2% of our electricity demand, and it was half of our growth in 1 year. It's starting to go down now. And to kind of put it in perspective, they're roughly like 2.5 times our street light consumption. So it's not, I mean, it's like 2-point-some%. Like, it doesn't seem like a lot, but then when you put it in perspective of street lights, like, that's a lot. So it's a lot, and it's not a lot at the same time, but it's kind of a big deal. We have a task force working with them right now. So our certifiably green folks have pulled together a task force of different marijuana growers and different industry representatives and members from folks from Excel, and just they've created this interdisciplinary group that's trying to figure out what's the best way for us to go forward. To be honest, what we're waiting for is the LED to get the right light spectrum kind of dialed in. the grows, and then they would have a real good chance at efficiency that way.
They could use some sunlight too.
Yeah, so, yeah, there was kind of a problem with that initially because the first round of the law kind of implied that you couldn't.
Right.
And so now we're kind of realizing like, oh yeah, maybe you can use sunlight. But then there's other kind of false market pushes too, whereas like I think you had to, when you had to be tied with your grow house to a particular retailer, then they kind of required you to be within a certain proximity of them or something like that. I don't know all those things. I think that part has since expired. And so now like Pueblo's trying to recruit marijuana growers down there and things like that, but at least that's a rumor I've heard. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, so it's a, yes sir.
Go ahead, Ally.
All right, just from kind of a bigger picture standpoint, and this is kind of a question for everybody, like one of the reasons why I feel like energy and planning is such an important topic is because it's right now seeming so piecemeal, and like there's so many different things happening, and you know, I don't think it was really brought up in the original blueprint Denver, but you know, with all of these different pieces to the puzzle that are happening kind of independently, what do those relationships look like then? Like if planners, urban planners are gonna get more involved in that process, you know, what does it look like sitting at a table with Excel and, you know, NREL or other campuses and the city and, you know, trying to kind of coordinate those things so that areas are moving in a similar direction and everybody's kind of on that same track instead of having everything kind of all over the place?
Yeah, it's a challenge. I mean, the Blueprint Denver plan is a really good one, a really good example of interagency cooperation. So they do have a lot of different folks from agencies working, many different agencies working on that plan. From our office perspective, we're trying to get in on each of those plans and to make sure that we are kind of being able to create a consistent goal for sustainability across all of them. But it's an imperfect system. It's really dependent upon a lot of legwork from different people spreading the message about what they're trying to do and to get some kind of consistency driven into all of them. You know, we try. It's imperfect, but we're trying. And I think that's a great opportunity of what our office has in the sense that we don't